Hi, welcome to the Crypto Republic. Before we dive in, if you're serious about staying ahead in this once-in-a-lifetime financial shift, make sure you like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic. You have no idea how close we are to that moment Ripple has been building towards for over a decade. For months, whispers have been echoing through the halls of global finance. But now, it's not whispers anymore. It's confirmation. Inside Ripple, something is happening, something strategic, something irreversible. And while the mainstream media remains distracted by ETF headlines and price predictions, the people who actually move the money, the insiders, are positioning for the biggest XRP shift we've ever seen. This isn't speculation, it's preparation. The next phase of the global liquidity network is already underway, and if you're paying attention, you can see it taking shape right now. Let's start here. When key figures at Ripple begin stepping into new roles, forming new alliances, or leaving the company entirely, it's not random, it's a signal. Behind closed doors, Ripple has been restructuring, quietly aligning its network with institutions that already sit at the core of the world's payment system. Private liquidity corridors are being tested. New on-demand liquidity nodes are being spun up across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. And the timing? It couldn't be more deliberate. After years of regulatory fog, the rules of engagement are finally becoming clear. The digital asset world is shifting from chaos to compliance, and Ripple is positioned at the center of that transformation. When you look at the history of innovation, there's always this moment before mass adoption, a quiet recalibration. The telephone had it, the internet had it, and now global finance is having it. That's what's happening right now with Ripple, a quiet recalibration before the explosion. People often ask, how do you know something big is coming? Here's how. When insiders stop talking about price and start building the structure around it, that's the tell. Ripple's top engineers and policy experts and liquidity strategists are aligning with central banks, remittance firms, fintech providers to hardwire XRP into the financial system. Remember, Ripple isn't building for retail hype. They're building plumbing, the kind of infrastructure that makes the world's value move invisibly, instantly, and across borders. Think about what that means. You might not see a flashy announcement, but deep inside clearing systems and settlement platforms, the code is changing. Legacy rails are being replaced with on-chain architecture, the invisible wires of a new global system. And that's where XRP lives, not as a speculative token, but as the fuel that powers the flow of value between every other digital asset. It's no longer about if, it's about when. To understand what's unfolding, you have to zoom out. In every financial revolution, there's a moment when the infrastructure quietly shifts under everyone's feet, and the public doesn't notice until it's too late. In the 15th century, the Medici family pioneered double-entry bookkeeping, a system that quietly transformed trade across Europe. Most people didn't realize it at the time, but that single accounting innovation created modern banking as we know it. In the 19th century, when telegraph lines connected continents, global commerce changed overnight. Weeks of settlement became seconds. That's what Ripple is doing right now for money itself. Every liquidity corridor Ripple establishes, every regulatory approval they secure, every bank partnership that goes live, it's another telegraph line in the making. Except this time, the wire doesn't carry words, it carries value. For years, Ripple's biggest barrier wasn't technology, it was clarity. But now, that clarity is finally coming. New legislation across the US, Europe, and Asia is defining what digital assets actually are. And Ripple has been sitting in every major policy conversation. From the ISO 222 standard to central bank pilot programs, Ripple has positioned XRP not as a cryptocurrency, but as infrastructure. That's the difference between a hype coin and a utility network. Bitcoin may be gold, Ethereum may be oil, but XRP, it's the bridge, the protocol layer that unites all forms of value, fiat, digital, tokenized, or decentralized. And here's the kicker. Once regulation is settled, the gates open. Institutional adoption doesn't happen gradually. It happens all at once. Here's what insiders are preparing for. The era where XRP isn't traded, it's used. When Ripple flips the switch on full institutional liquidity, XRP just won't be another asset. It will be the standard. Funds, banks, and fintech giants won't hold it like a retail trader. They'll use it as the conduit for value. We're entering the phase where liquidity itself becomes the product. Think about that. The last century was defined by companies owning assets. This century will be defined by those who control liquidity. That's why Ripple's next move matters more than any partnership, announcement, or price chart. They're not just buying XRP. They're engineering a financial system that needs XRP to function. If history teaches us anything, it's that major transformations don't announce themselves. They creep in as disguised as infrastructure upgrades. The steam engine didn't just improve transport, it rewired economies. The internet didn't just digitize communication, it rewired information. Ripple isn't just modernizing payments, it's rewriting value. That's the pattern, and it's repeating. When the Bank of England, the IMF, and major payment corridors start adopting the same messaging standard Ripple built around, that's the 1995 internet moment for finance. Except this time, instead of websites popping up, it's liquidity corridors. And when they connect, the explosion will be silent but global. Of course, not everyone gets it. The skeptics, the critics, they'll say Ripple's insiders are dumping or that XRP is stagnant. They said the same thing about the internet in 1998. They said the same thing about electric cars in 2012. And every time the same story played out. First they mock, then they ignore, then they buy in. Too late. The truth is, insiders aren't leaving because they're giving up. They're leaving because their part of the job is done. The architecture's built. The blueprint's complete. And now it's time for execution. Across Asia and Europe, banks are testing what they call real-time liquidity nodes. Each one represents a micro-hub of XRP utility, connecting one region to another. For it's the digital version of laying railroad tracks in the 1800s. Back then, nations that ignored railroads were left behind. Today, nations that ignore on-demand liquidity will be too. And here's the part no one's ready for. The institutions adopting these systems won't even advertise they're using XRP. They'll just use it. Invisible adoption, silent infrastructure, massive demand. We are watching the first convergence of tokenized finance, AI, and instant settlement. And XRP sits right in the middle of that triangle. Ripple's network is quietly being integrated into cross-border trade, FX settlement, and even treasury operations. When those systems go live at scale, it won't just shift markets, it will redefine them. This is the unspoken truth. We're not waiting for the next bull run. We're waiting for the next era, the liquidity era. So here's the takeaway. Every rumor, every inside move, every quiet resignation or advisory board appointment, it all points to the same reality. Ripple's next move isn't about hype. It's about control. Control of liquidity, control of infrastructure, control of the pipes through which the money's world will flow. And once that system is fully switched on, there'll be no going back. The next time you see an XRP transaction settle in seconds, remember, that's not just a payment. That's history repeating itself. A new financial system being written in real time. So don't blink, because when Ripple's next move finally goes public, the rest of the world will realize it was right in front of them all along. This is bigger than the price, bigger than hype. This is architecture, and architecture always wins. If you understand what's coming, congratulations. You're not just watching history, you're early. This opened your eyes. Smash that like button, ring the bell, leave a comment with your thoughts, turn on notifications, and most importantly, subscribe to the Crypto Republic, bringing you the truth about XRP, global banking moves, the wealth transfer already unfolding. Don't just watch history happen. Stay informed, stay ahead, stay in the Republic.